Hey everybody, Mr. Lake here. Today we are going to get into our second unit in Biology A, which is the unit devoted to understanding biochemistry. Biochemistry being the chemistry of biology, all about all of the chemical processes that occur within living things. And that starts with a discussion of what metabolism means. So, metabolism refers to all of the ways that living things get and use energy. So, what is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. And that is a definition straight out of a physics book, but it applies to anything. Energy is what allows us to create motion or create change of any kind. So, that could be walking, turning on a light bulb, powering a car, having a thought, right? All of these things are things that require change, that require work, and that comes from energy. Now, there's a lot of different types of energy out there in the world. There's heat energy, of course, light energy, energy of motion or kinetic energy, electrical energy, chemical energy. And it's this last one, chemical energy, that we're going to be focusing on a lot in this unit. So before we move on, I want to kind of just get your brain working a little bit. I want you to pause this video and think about these four questions. Where do cars get their energy? Where do lamps get their energy? Where do plants get energy? And where do you get energy? Pause the video, think about it for about 20 seconds, and then press play. Okay, I hope you took a few seconds to think about this. So, of course, cars get energy from fuel, from gasoline, and they release that energy by burning the gasoline. So combustion is a great way to release energy in a way that it's usable. Now, that probably doesn't sound like something that we do, but what you'll actually find out starting in the next video and going on to future videos is you'll find out that actually it's very similar to how we get energy from our food. There was a little spoiler there. Lamps, of course, get their energy from electricity. You plug it into the socket, you flip the switch, and it works, right? Plants get their energy from the sun. We probably know that plants absorb sunlight and they have special organelles in their cells called chloroplasts that convert that energy from the sun into chemical energy. And of course, where do we get energy? We get our energy from our food. That's why we eat, is so that we can get energy to continue doing work, making change, and moving around. So the energy that we find in our food is chemical energy. You probably don't think of like a piece of pizza as chemicals, but that's what it is. It's a bunch of sugars of various types. It's a bunch of lipids, which are fat molecules, carbohydrates, which are sugars, proteins. It's all sorts of stuff. It's just a bunch of chemicals in a particular arrangement. So it has a taste that you may or may not like, and it's much more to your mind, it's a lot more than just a pile of chemicals, but to your body, it's really just a pile of chemicals. And the way that we release that energy after we eat is we break those molecules down. We use the molecules that the food contains to run other cell processes that make other energy molecules that we can use whenever we need to do stuff. So, why would we need to do this? And I touched on this a little bit ago, right? Why would we need to have energy at all? Well, we use this energy that we get from our food for everything. We use it to make new cells, which is important for not just growing, but also reproducing. We use energy to break down old materials and build new structures. We use and part of that is like the healing process, right? So if you get a scrape, if you break a bone, if you have any sort of injury, even a bruise, that's going to result in cell damage. And so your body has to make new cells and repair that damage, grow new tissue to take the place of what was broken. And so it's going to take energy to break those materials down and replace them. We use energy to maintain homeostasis, which is something that you learned about last week. We use energy to respond to stimulus, right? Like move, um, run away from threats, run towards things that make us happy, uh, play sports, anything, right? That's kind of the movement portion. And of course, we use energy to kind of maintain organization internally. That one's not quite as obvious, doesn't have great examples, but it's really important when you think about the structures within the body that we use energy to kind of maintain those structures and maintain organization and interaction between all the different parts of the body. All right, I'm going to disappear for just a second. So, metabolism is not just the way that we consume and use energy. Metabolism also refers to the process of building up energy storing molecules. The reason that we usually talk about like human metabolism, just in reference to breaking down what we eat, is because we don't build up energy storage molecules. That is done by processes like photosynthesis, which I'm sure you're aware humans don't do photosynthesis. So the whole process of building chemical energy is really done by plants and other types of organisms, which we'll talk about in the next video. So metabolism refers to that process of capturing energy. It also refers to the process of breaking down energy that has been captured and using it to do other things, which is done through processes like cellular respiration and fermentation. So, this slide right here is really kind of an overview of the main topics of the next several lectures that you're going to have. We're going to talk in depth about photosynthesis and chemosynthesis, which you may not have heard of that last one, and how they build up energy storage molecules. And then next week, you're going to talk about, or you're going to learn about cellular respiration and fermentation, which is the processes that are used to break down energy storage molecules and actually accomplish work. So, where does this energy come from other than just our food? That's not really a great answer to that question because we also need to think about physics and we need to think about the fact that energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed, right? That is the first law of thermodynamics. You may have heard that before. Energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. So that means that there is a fixed amount of energy in the universe. New energy is not created. So when we're talking about like plants making energy, they're not actually making new energy. They are doing is they are changing the energy from one form into another. They're changing energy from light into chemical energy, into sugars. And when we break energy down to use it, like when we break down our food and we use it to hit a baseball or something like that. That was a really wimpy swing, but I don't want to hit my microphone. When we use that energy, we are not eliminating energy from the universe. We're actually translating that energy into a new form. We are using the chemical energy in the things that we ate to create energy of motion, right? Swinging that bat. That's the energy that that's the form that energy now exists in. So all of the energy that we use for everything does leave our bodies in some way, whether it's through the motions that we do or oftentimes through heat. That's why we produce body heat, is because our cells are using energy to do all of these internal things. And that energy that was used has to go into some new form. And so we lose it as heat. Now, switching gears a little bit here, we're going to talk about ATP, which is a really important molecule in the body. ATP is an acronym. It's short for adenosine triphosphate. And it is an energy molecule that our bodies and the bodies of all living things make. It's not what we're eating, though. So, that piece of pizza that we eat, it's not like that piece of pizza is full of ATP. That piece of pizza is full of things like carbohydrates. And what our body does is it takes those carbohydrates and it breaks them down and it uses the energy that the carbohydrates had to make ATP. So why do that? Why would we expend energy and why would we our cells take the time to take one energy containing molecule like a sugar, a carbohydrate, and convert that energy into a different energy molecule like ATP? Well, it's because ATP is more useful, especially when it comes to like responding to situations. ATP is an energy that our cells can use immediately to power whatever process they need to do. So if they need to make some new DNA because they are about to replicate, they will use ATP for that. The sugar isn't, the energy in the sugar is not as readily available. Here's an analogy that might help that make a little more sense. Sugar is kind of like raw coal. We all know that coal contains a lot of energy, right? A lump of coal contains a lot of energy, but when you pick up that lump of coal, can you feel the energy that it contains? Can you push that piece of coal against a light bulb and will the light bulb turn on? No. Even though that coal contains a lot of energy, the energy isn't in a readily usable form. You have to do a process to release the energy from the coal in order to use it. And so for coal, that's burning it, right? Once you burn the coal, that releases the energy and you can use that energy to cook a steak or turn a turbine that will create electrical energy or do whatever you want, right? You can use that heat energy to create other forms of more useful energy. Speaking of which, ATP molecules are more like batteries. You can take a battery and push it against a light bulb and see that light bulb turn on, depending on the battery and the type of light bulb and whether you have it wired. And it's more than just taking any battery and any light bulb, putting them together. But right, the energy that's in that battery is very accessible. It's immediately something that a device like a light bulb could use. So you can kind of think of ATP in that way. When we eat sugars and carbohydrates, our body basically burns them. And as it's burning them, it uses the energy that's released to make ATP, which are like tiny little cellular batteries. And it can use those to do anything it needs to do at any time. So I mentioned this a minute ago, but what we really have going on with regards to metabolism and humans is that we take in chemical energy by eating things. That is how we get our energy. We don't really get energy any other way. That's the function of eating. And that chemical energy comes in a lot of different forms, carbohydrates and fats and other things. But we're going to kind of focus in this class on one of the primary and one of the simplest forms of energy, which is carbohydrates, specifically sugars like glucose. So we eat that, it comes into our body, and then our body basically burns it and converts the energy that it contains into ATP. You can kind of think of that as like the body's energy currency, right? And then we use that ATP to do whatever we need to do. Now, like I said, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when we use the ATP, the energy that we're using doesn't just go away, it goes into something or it changes into a different form. Depending on what it is, maybe that energy changes into, like I said, energy of motion. But generally, we're talking about heat loss. So the reason that we produce so much heat all the time, right? We are like pretty warm, and we maintain that temperature all the time. And where that energy comes from is it comes from the heat that is being released by these processes that we're doing, because the energy is going somewhere. Now, of course, we also release chemical waste. I'm sure that you're aware, when we exhale things like carbon dioxide and water vapor. Those are technically waste products from these internal processes we're talking about. So that is an overview of generally what metabolism means and what it looks like specifically to us. So in the next video, we're going to break it down and get into photosynthesis, where we talk a little bit more about where these sugars that are our primary form of energy actually come from. All right, so until next time, thanks for watching. Peace out.